Hey guys, how's it going? This is Jeremy Whitaker, and so happy to tell you guys that my new EP called Wandering in the Dark is out today, actually. You can go and stream it everywhere that you stream music. I would love if you guys would just share it with your friends. I really want not just the messages of these songs, but the production and the instrumentations to touch a lot of people. And if you guys wouldn't mind just sharing it real quick, just even right now, with one of your friends that you know would benefit from some of the messaging in this EP, I'd greatly appreciate it. Today we're going to be looking at the stems to probably my favorite song on the record called Keep Your Eyes on Me. It's the first song on the EP. And we're going to go through it and just talk a little bit through some of the production. As you can see here, there's 5 groups here that I've broken these into. But even, you know, something that's really interesting is even as we open these up, I mean, guys, there's only 24 total tracks in here, which is really interesting for a song that sounds as big as this one does, but the production is actually really simplistic. I'm going to start with the drums here. The drums are kind of the heartbeat of this song. They're at the center of how this song gains and portrays energy, in my opinion. Kind of chose a kind of UK garage, house with swing kind of feel. A lot of these samples were taken from Splice, whether it was the one shots or some of the swing fill loop dynamics that, I'm kind of experimenting with. Found them on Splice and they've been a huge help. But one of the things you can really take note of is the fact that these are pretty warm drum sounds. They're not actually super bright and forward. That's because in some places in the song, like I'll play now, the energy level needs to be tempered a little bit. So I use auto filtering to release the frequencies, the high frequencies, that 10K plus or even 1K plus frequencies to emit energy. And so especially as we go over here into the hook sections, you can hear that the drums really brighten up to emit more energy. So even as we look through the track, you can see that there's a pretty simplistic nature to this song. The only really interesting drum part that kind of diverts away is this little drums with a filter on it. It's a bandpass filter that kind of raises up as the song ratchets up in intensity into the second hook. So you can hear that filter kind of helps elevate the transition into the hook. I want to move on to the vocals real quick. You can see there's about 6 vocal tracks here, but this is compressed down from what I would say is maybe even double that. And we consolidate them into these 6 tracks you see right here. The first thing I want to point out is the hook of the song. If you fall, now you can hear there's a few really distinct things in here that I want to point out. The first is head voice instead of chest voice. So getting into my higher register and going for more of a breathy sound. That higher register really help texturize the vocal in a way that actually the auto-tune really grabs onto, as well as using a plugin like Fresh Air. Now, if you guys don't know what Fresh Air is, it's actually a free plugin. I would say everyone should get this thing. Fresh Air is a plugin that it's technically called an exciter, and what that does is it actually latches onto certain frequencies. For me, I would say it may be like a 4K plus in the frequency spectrum, and actually kind of high shelves and excites certain frequencies. So I'll give you a really clear example of this. If you fall asleep. That's obviously super exaggerated, but you can get my meaning that it actually helps create a lot of clarity in the vocal. Now I took this hook and actually took that audio sample into my favorite plugin called Cycles from Slate & Ash. This concise, rhythmic, loopable texture that I use throughout the song. And actually later in the song, that actually becomes kind of a lead line. which I find to be super versatile and really nice. Now, before we move on to the verse vox sections, you can see that there's a few layers of harmonies in here. I really chose specific notes to utilize harmonies on. For example, the word fall on the hook. Let me do it again here over in the second half of this hook, but I actually add a low octave to the vocal. So super layered, really interesting dynamic. And then the last part is this very clean verse vox. And you can see we have two. That's because we layered the normal octave, the regular singing of the verse, with a upper octave, and kind of blended them together. Keep your eyes on me. Now you might be able to hear that upper octave and say, hey, that sounds a little bit synthesized. And that actually is exactly what it is, because I actually took the sample, excuse me. I took the sample and I actually took it into complex warping mode in Ableton, pitched it up 12 semitones, which is a full octave, and then took the envelope and the formants all the way up. So it tries to preserve enough of the sound to where it sounds like a little bit like a synthetic rendition of the original at a higher pitch. So that ends up creating this. Keep your eyes on me. Out of the exact same sample. Keep your eyes on me. So that's it for the vocals, guys. Let's move on to the instruments. And I want to clarify, this is melodic instruments, melodic instrumentation. The first thing you're going to see here is something called demo text, and that's because I took a texture from the demo tapes, one of his sampled packs, and I can't recommend it enough. He's got such amazing sounds. This just kind of looping, almost like watery texture that kind of plays throughout the song. Next, you'll see a few layers of kind of what looks like a stuttered, chopped up synth sound. And that's because this is actually that same part that we talked about with that filter drum set. This is that same section where it's kind of ratcheting up the intensity. But instead of doing like a clear like build, like an EDM build, I kind of went for more of like this stuttered, almost pop-centric rhythm. Along with that, there's also a piano there. Now that piano is Noir by Native Instruments, my favorite piano, super versatile. And then that synth sound is from Serum. Next, you're going to see the most prominent instrument in this entire song is the saw pad. Huge sound. It's a 16 voicing saw pad in Serum that has the detune set to about half to give that nice big full texture. And then even later in the song, to procure a bit more of a higher dynamic, we actually release all those frequencies like we've done in a few other places in this song. Produces a nice big full sound. Lastly here, something I called the trill lead, and that's because it kind of sounds like a whistle to me. Played in context. Really love it. Kind of liked the idea of adding an instrument with portamento, meaning the time it takes to transition from one note to the other if you kind of play them back to back at the same time. We already covered the drums. Let's talk about the bass next. Really simple. Watch this. One track, baby. So I took a kind of a classic 808 patch from Serum, and so you're gonna hear that kind of classic hip hop 808. But one thing you'll notice is that it actually sustains itself. So I took the initial envelope for the synthesizer and set it to a max sustain so it doesn't hit and then lose any of its volume. And then I added a bit of a saturation to it to give it a little bit more drive. And that's pretty much it for the bass, guys. It's really simple there. Last thing we'll cover is the effects, which you could see that it's super simple song. So we have a chain for sweeps, and I have this thing called a little candy sweep, which I'll play right here. Just a really nice little, you know, plays just for a little bit of a melodic sweep. And then this last part that I want to look at is, and I actually want to spend a little bit of time talking about, is the wind texture here. This playing kind of lays in the background for the entire song. One of my preferences when it comes to electronic music is that I don't actually like to use white noise texturing to create those textures. I like to actually use some more natural sounds. So I went into Splice and I typed in some field recordings and found one that was really good. And then I used that Fresh Air plugin, like we talked about earlier, to excite some of those high ends. And then I actually ran that also through a compressor and a saturator to really make it feel like a compressed, windy texture. And it kind of plays nicely in the background if we play it in context. Gives a little bit more of a natural feel. But that's it, guys. All of these groups culminate into what I think is one of my favorite songs that I've experimented with and made. So here it goes. Keep your eyes on I'm going to skip ahead here. So that's it, guys. Thanks for watching today. Please go stream Wandering in the Dark, and specifically, please stream Keep Your Eyes on Me. It's like one of my favorite songs I've made in a long time. It feels so fresh and new. And yeah, guys, super excited to hear some feedback from you guys on the new tracks. And yeah, can't wait to hear it. So talk to you guys soon. Love you guys. See ya.